5. I was so lost that I actually had to start on a different day. So I'm going to start with the last sentence. I myself managed to stop the clock a few years after we parted ways, though I used a different method. I didn't have the stomach for his. Daniel wondered what the man who never aged had done exactly, but Mr. Silver waved a hand, as though flicking away the memories. The point is, I am older than I seem, and I'm beginning to feel the weight of the Emporium upon my shoulders. This is why I have decided to take on an assistant. He nodded to Daniel. Do you recall what I was doing when you first found the shop? I think, Daniel said, screwing up his eyes as he tried to replay the memory in his head. You were writing at your desk. Silver reached into the pocket of his coat. He placed the battered old book on his lap. I was writing in this book, said Silver. He took it up and found the pages, causing his wild hair to blow into his eyes. And what a book! It is the key to this place, the secret behind the Emporium, my Book of Wonders. Daniel stared at the cracked cover. The title was all but faded away, though there were places where gold lettering was still visible. He could decipher the letters LSWOND. He leaned in. Was it his imagination, or could he feel the book pulling at him, drawing him closer? Silver continued. For every room that will ever come to exist in the Emporium, there is a page in this book. When I have an idea for a new wonder and I've thought it through carefully and decided that it's suitable, I begin to write it down. The pages are enchanted and entwined with the shop. When I have finished writing, a wonder will appear somewhere in the corridors. All the doors I saw on the way here, said Daniel. All the wonders. They have a page in their book. Silver thumbed through the pages, selecting one passage and placing the book open on the table. The writing within, in deep black ink, was small and neat and decorated with small curls and flourishes. There was also a sketch, drawn in flowing black lines that seemed to come alive as Daniel gazed at it. I recognize this, he said, leaning over closer to the book. It's my wagon. Silver smiled for a fleeting moment, causing the lines around his eyes to deepen. Correct, he said. I trust you find it comfortable enough? If you wish me to change anything, it's perfect, said Daniel. His fingers fluttered hungrily, and he felt a great rush of excitement as he asked, Can I have a closer look? A hesitation. Silver handed over the book. It was heavier than Daniel expected, but it also felt familiar somehow, as if he had held it before. He flicked through page after page, noting in his mind a list of rooms he longed to visit. There was an underground lake of gold, a cove filled with sapphire, where a mermaid whispered the whereabouts of buried treasure. He saw a path through an enchanted forest and the mountain top den of an armor-clad dragon, and a glass land populated by lions. There were ancient pages where the ink was worn and could not be properly read. One such passage caught his attention, and as he stared at the words, his stomach told him that they contained something vast and dark and ancient. The Library of Souls, said Mr. Silver. I'm a fan of stories, a collector, and there is no greater story than that of life. The Library of Souls holds on its many shelves the life story of everyone who has ever lived, everyone who will ever live. Wonderstruck, Daniel tried to imagine a room vast enough to hold such a great number of books, but he was distracted when Mr. Silver gasped and breathed through his teeth. He sat forward in his chair and held his hand to his chest. What's wrong? Silver closed his eyes tight and took a deep breath. He let the breath out slowly, opened his eyes and blinked. I'm fine, he said. Daniel's eyes lingered on Silver's hand, which was still pressed to his chest. Now that you've seen inside the Book of Wonders, said Mr. Silver, as if nothing had happened, it is time for the first test. He held out an open hand. In his palm sat a golden fountain pen. Daniel stared at it. I don't understand. I want you to attempt a wonder on your own. Write it in the book. Me? Make a room appear from nowhere? You're having a laugh. I certainly am not. It is the quickest way to judge whether you have my talent, or any talent. Daniel fidgeted in his chair. He had not imagined his first test could be something so huge. He took the pen from Silva. What if nothing happens? He asked. Will you sack me? Now that he was holding the book, that he'd seen the wonders within its pages, his whole life seemed so very far away. It was like he'd been living in black and white, and suddenly the world was alive with colour and possibilities. He was not ready to return to the grey. Silva thought about the question. What shall we worry about if that happens? We shall worry about if that happens. He mimed writing. On you go. Daniel found a blank page. His palm was wet. What shall I write? That is up to you, said Silva. Though I would advise starting with something small, a solitary room perhaps, nothing too fancy. Daniel thought and thought. Then from nowhere, an image appeared in his mind, something comforting from his past, and the idea began to blossom and flower. When he was as certain as he could be, he began to write in Mr. Silva's book. When he had finished, the entire page was filled with the neatest handwriting he could manage. His fingers tingled warmly. Silva motioned for Daniel to hand the book over. Do you think it worked? Daniel heart punched at the inside of his chest. Mr. Silva shook the messy hair from his eyes and went to the door. Let's find out, he said. The emporium was closed, which meant the corridors were deserted and cloaked in shadow. As he followed Silva sticking close, Daniel imagined that he could hear the walls breathing. A shiver danced down his spine. As if reading his mind, Mr. Silva said, It's perfectly safe to walk the corridors, to explore. In fact, I encourage it. Everything you see is under my control. Nothing will harm you. In all the years I have been welcoming customers into the emporium, no one has left with so much as a bruise. It's just the thought of getting lost, said Daniel. I could wander around forever. You will find your feet, said Silva. Walking the corridors and passageways will become second nature. And know this, if, by some curious twist of fate, you will find yourself in trouble, the emporium will help you. All you have to do is ask. Silva slowed at last. He tilted his head to the side, as if he were listening to some faraway sound. He took 4 slow steps to the nearest shining black door and pressed his ear against the surface. He stepped back. His gaze flicked from the door to Daniel and back. This is new, he said, and he's not one of mine. He gave Daniel a curious look, like he was staring at some alien creature. Open it. Daniel trembled as he approached the door. Even after everything he'd seen these past few days, he couldn't quite believe that a new room had appeared simply because he had written in an old book. And at the same time, he felt a strange sense of wondrous pride. But was it enough? Would he pass the test? His hand was slick with sweat as he grasped the door handle. The lock gave a satisfying click. The door opened. The room was circular and dim and cold, and in the centre stood a column of stone, honeycombed with 100,000 of open compartments. In each compartment sat a glass sphere. A staircase wound up around the column, stretching into endless darkness. Mr. Silva stared around. His mouth hung open a little. Daniel reached out to touch the column. He half expected his hand to pass through, that it was not real, but his fingers found the cool, rough stone. It's real, he whispered. It's really here, just like I imagined when I was writing it in the book. Silva selected a sphere from the column and spun it in his hand, watching as a flurry of snow whipped around the inside of the glass. Snow globes, he said. Why snow globes? Daniel had already begun to climb the spiral staircase, staring at the hundreds of shining glass globes. Some were smaller than marbles, others larger than his head. Each was empty, save for the snowflakes inside. My mum collected them, Daniel said. It's one of the only things I really remember about her before my dad died, before she was sad all the time. When I was little, I'd sit on her knees and she'll tell me about each one. When I was little, I'd sit on her knee and she'd tell me each one had a secret inside. That's what this room is, a place to keep secrets. The globes are empty because they're waiting to be filled. Whisper your secret into one and it'll be safe. Mr. Silver brushed his hands against a few of the snow globes. He stared about, delight to twinkle dancing in his grey eyes. It is perfect for the Emporium, he said. Then he gazed up at the column of secrets and smiled. May I have the honour of leaving the first secret? Daniel felt a rush of pride. Go right ahead, he said. Leaving a secret was a very personal thing. So he turned away while Mr. Silver climbed further up the steps and searched for the perfect globe. When he reappeared, Daniel asked, Did it work? A pause. I feel lighter, said Silver. I think that means it worked. So, did I pass the test? Mr. Silver seemed to be amused by the question. You have talent, he said. Daniel could not hide his proud smile. He felt giddy and important. Mr. Silver's face became very serious. He went on, The Book of Wonders is a very powerful thing, Daniel. It is tied to me, entwined with my soul. So entwined that we are almost one and the same. Your connection to the book is something new and unexpected. If, by some tiny chance, you ever come across the book when you're alone, I must ask that you do not write a single word in its pages without me. You are inexperienced, raw. The result will be unpredictable, dangerous even. Understand? I mustn't write in the book without you, said Daniel. Silver smiled and bounded down the steps 2 at a time. From now on, you'll write 1 page in the book every night after closing time. If you continue to show skill, I think there is much I can teach you. But be on your toes. At some point, I will test you again. And I promise you, you will not see it coming. Then he was gone, leaving Daniel alone with his secrets. See you next time.